This is the Charleston Gazette Mail meeting with candidates from the 13th District, Democratic candidates from the 13th District House of Delegates. I appreciate y'all coming. We'll have you all introduce yourself after we introduce ourselves. When you introduce yourself, we'll start with you, sir, and just give a 2-minute or less introduction as to why you're running, and we'll just have a conversation here. These are 2 of the 4 Democratic candidates running for the 13th District House of Delegates, and we will be interviewing Republican candidates tomorrow. So with that,
and we invited the 15th and 22nd, but they had conflict or something.
So we'll just call this the 13th District.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Go ahead, you would introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Brad McElhenney. I'm co-editor of the Gazette Mail.
I'm Kelly Merritt, opinion editor of the Daily Mail opinion page.
I'm Whitney Burdett. I'm an editorial writer for the Daily Mail opinion page.
I'm Dawn Miller. I'm the Gazette opinion page editor.
Ryan Ferguson, Gazette. I'm Greg Moore. I'm the city editor of the Gazette Mail.
David Gutman. I'm a Gazette Mail reporter.
Okay, yeah, my name is Scott Brewer, and I am a candidate for the 13th District. I live in Mason County. Basically lifelong resident, with the exception of 6 years I was out of town for work opportunities. I am a 38-year member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. Worked in the field for 22 years. I have been a 15-plus year representative for Carpenters 1207 here in Charleston. And basically, I have spent, over the last 15 years, I've spent a lot of time at the legislature watching, on behalf of the membership that I represent, what's happening at the legislature to keep them updated. And the last 2 years have not been extremely pleasant for working people. And although it's not the only reason, I just feel like that there is a lot of dysfunction in the leadership of the legislature, and that's the reason I got involved, and that's the reason I got in the race.
Thank you. Rosalie Juba Plumley. I'm an attorney out in Putnam County, and I have practiced law for 30 years in a small general practice. So I've witnessed firsthand the issues that I think need to be addressed by the legislature. I graduated from Princeton High School, then Marshall University. My undergraduate is in economics, and then I went to WVU College of Law and graduated in 1985, and I've been in Putnam County since then. Part of why I am running is, number one, I'm upset about what has happened, and I think our state has gone backward in a lot of ways. But by concentrating on all of these other things, they have failed to address what I think need to be addressed. Number one is diversification of our economy in West Virginia. But before we even get to that, we need to address what I consider to be the major health issue in my generation, which is the opiate addiction in this state. It is now affecting every single aspect of what I do as an attorney, and it is killing our children on a daily basis. We have got to do something. The federal government's stepping up, but for 2 legislative sessions now, they have not addressed the issue at all. And we are spending massive amounts of our available healthcare dollars and everything else on this addiction. We have got to do something to get it under control. You know, I am upset very much with some of the things that have happened in the last 2 sessions. I'm a progressive Democrat. Anybody who knows me knows that that is my position. And I believe that I have a tremendous amount to offer if I am put into the legislature.
For the record, will you spell your last name?
I can do that. The first part's Juba, J-U-B-A, hyphen Plumley, P-L-U-M-L-E-Y.
And we had thought George Thaxton, another candidate, was coming, and he might still come. Not here yet.
Okay, I'd like to start with the question, and start with you, Mr. Brewer, and then if you can answer as well. You said the last 2 years with Republicans in control of the legislature have not been good for working people. Well, obviously, before the Republicans got in the House, or got the majority, things weren't real good for working people in West Virginia either, because West Virginia, I think even then, had the lowest level of people, working age population working, ranks low on wages, hourly wages earned. And I mean, there's just statistic after statistic that you can point that's wasn't a whole lot of people working in West Virginia and the wages were not good. So, obviously the wasn't great for working people before. And I'm just wondering, obviously the health legislation made a couple of changes, prevailing wage and right to work. But should those be given time to work before you want to change them?
Well, as far as the repeal of prevailing wage, I don't see how lowering wages is going to do anything for the economic, for the economy of the state of West Virginia or its workers. I just don't believe that we cut our way to prosperity. And as far as the right to work bill goes, I'm very familiar with my line of work. I'm very familiar with right to work. I can promise you that what it does do is it increases workplace fatalities. It decreases overall income of families. It basically eliminates any training, workforce training that is offered by the labor organizations. And I think that there are a lot of other avenues that the legislature could take to help West Virginia, as opposed to reducing wages and reducing workplace safety, reducing workforce training. I don't believe that that's an avenue for prosperity for West Virginia.
To follow up on that, our economy is a consumer-driven economy. And in order to grow our economy, we have to have consumers, and to have consumers, we have to have wages that allow them to consume. It is proven, and not just by sites such as the AFL-CIO, et cetera, but if you look at the Economic Policy Institute as well, in states that have right to work laws, wages go down. It can vary from as much as 11% down to 3.5%. And we're already a low wage state. Now, part of the reason we are a low wage state is we've been a captive industry state for 150 years. And anytime you let one or two industries do that to your state, it tends to drive out the other industries and the other things that could grow really good paying jobs. One of the things I was really disturbed about this term is the attempt to diminish the hemp industry. Hemp is a growing industry across this country, and it could provide wonderful jobs. It's a green industry. You could replace every one of these plastic bottles with hemp containers. And, as a state, the reason that we are where we are is that we have refused to diversify for 150 years. And we've got to do that. We've got to bring in industry that is different from the extraction industry. I'm not putting down mining. I'm not putting down coal, oil, and gas, but you have to diversify.
How does the state best go about diversifying the economy?
Well, number one, you have to pump money into education. Companies are not going to locate in this state if you do not have good educational systems. Some of the counties do that quite well. I'm blessed to be in a county, Putnam County. We're number 3 in the state but we invest in our buildings. As a population, our county chose to invest in buildings. We chose to invest in our teachers. And we have to do that as a state. That's number one. Number two, I think that we have got to, we've got to get out of some of the mentality that we're in this state. Companies do not want to locate in a state that they believe might not be tolerant to some of their employees. We've got to do a better job of that. We are suffering from what I'll call the poor Southern state mentality, and we've got to do a better job of doing something about that. The other thing that we need to address is infrastructure. Companies want to come into a state where everybody's got available city water, and everybody's got available sewer, and everybody's got high-speed internet. We've got to do some infrastructure investment in roads and in bridges and in things like that. And again, those sorts of investments will create good paying jobs, which in turn will give us more income tax and would lead to companies coming into the state.
Question again?
I asked how we can best go about diversifying the economy. in this
Okay,
region.
if I could back up, I wanted to add one thing to the prevailing wage issue.
Okay.
Repeal of prevailing wage, by the studies that I have seen, won't save the state a dime. We had studies by independent, in the University of Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe the gentleman's name, but when you take out all of the site conditions and things like here, we build schools on the sides of mountains, where in Virginia, North Carolina, we build them on flat ground. You take out all the site conditions and talk about just the basic construction, we build them cheaper per square foot here. They have no prevailing wage in Virginia. They have no prevailing wage in North Carolina. We do it here because we have a very well-trained workforce. Now, as far as the economy, Rosalie's right. We need to educate. We need workforce education. We need to invest in higher education. We need to invest in community colleges and vocational education to give our young people and our young adults the skills and tools it takes to get a good job, to command good wages, to pay taxes, to create the tax base. Infrastructure investment, she's again right on. If we invest money in our roads and our bridges, that will put people back to work. That will hopefully give them good jobs, earning good wages, have benefits to support a family, to support the community. That will also, in my opinion, tend to alleviate some of the drug problem. You give people a good job where they've got some hope, I think it will ease part of that drug problem that we're facing.
Thank you.
From a multi-county district, what are the particular socioeconomic challenges that each part of your district faces, or is it somewhat similar throughout?
I think the north side of the river is similar. Now, if you compared us to Tays Valley, there would be some difference, because most of the folks on the north side of the river are, I'll say, old-time Putnam County folks that have been there for generations. In Tays Valley, you've got more of a transient a population that doesn't have the long-term roots. Now, you do have some of that over in the valley, but and you do have a different economic structure over there. Most of the folks on the north side of the river probably have a little lower income. Not tremendously lower. I mean, these are good, solid folks on the north side of the river, but they don't have the. You're not going to have the McMansions over there. Let's put it that way.
For the most part, Rosalie's right. Mason County, which is my home county, on the north side of the river, they're working people. They work in the power plants. They work in the chemical plants along the Ohio River in Mason County. In Jackson County, the portion of this district, that's Ravenswood Aluminum, Century Aluminum people. And in Putnam County, those folks are just hardworking people. They work at John Amos, or they work at Toyota or somewhere like that. They're just blue collar folks.
As more and more of 35 is completed, is that changing the makeup of that area? Are you seeing anything yet?
Well, I certainly hope as Route 35 is completed that there's going to attract more industry. I can just sit on the Mason County Development Authority, and we're looking at that as an avenue to attract business. I'm on the Charleston Area Alliance Economic Committee, and anything we can do to connect ourselves to the rest of the region has to be positive, I believe.
It will help the region as a whole. 35 of course sits on the south side of the river, but it leads right into Point Pleasant. Mason County has suffered for many years when compared to Putnam County and what's been invested in Putnam County from I guess it's further away from Charleston, so it doesn't get as much consideration. So hopefully that'll help Mason a great deal. And it certainly would improve the safety. The main thing about 35 is it's a dangerous road in places. And number one, they need to rework that curve at the Buffalo Bridge, because every week an 18-wheeler wrecks there. But the completion of that should help a lot with the safety issues.
I think the completion will take that curve out.
Will
If
it?
I'm not mistaken. And Mason County has more flat land than any county in the state. And we need, they just need to be able to get there.
That's true.
Mr. Duplin, you said in your opening that the legislature hadn't done anything over the past couple of years to address the opioid crisis. What specifically would you like to see them do?
Well, number one, I think we have to go along with what the president has prescribed, which is we have to do treatment. And of course, the federal government is now pouring some money into that for treatment facilities. I think that on a state level, the way we can address that is a couple ways. Number one, in our criminal justice, we can pour money into drug courts. Not every county has got a drug court, and I'm here to tell you that if done correctly, they can be highly successful in that treatment. And I think that the legislature had perfect opportunities these past two sessions to address that and to say that's a priority. And we're going to fund that priority, even though, you know, there's not a lot of money out there. They could raise the sin tax to pay for that. And that would be a perfect thing to use the sin tax for, is treatment of this addiction. The second thing the state could have done before the federal government ever moved is education. We are not doing meaningful education at a young enough level to prevent this from going down to the next generation. And the legislature could have mandated that as well, and provided some funding for that as well.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to, I think something that will definitely help the drug problem is give people a meaningful job, something to do other than take drugs, something to give their life a purpose, give them a meaning. So again, I think that this legislature should have invested in infrastructure, passed a budget. I think they should invest again heavily in education, force training, higher ed. We need to fix PEI, number one, and so we can attract the teachers that it takes to teach our children to where they can have the good jobs and a meaningful profession.
If I could say one quick thing about that as well, to follow up on this and the jobs, he's absolutely right. These folks are coming out of addiction and they're being told, hey, if you can just get clean, we'll try to help you. And they can't get jobs because of their records. This legislature had a perfect opportunity with the Second Chance Jobs Act to do something about that. And it got stalled. It went through, I think the Senate was ready to do it and the House either negated it, or the House was ready to do it and the Senate negated it. But that's something that needs to happen. These are kids that have felony records now, and it's almost impossible for them to get good jobs.
Okay. So you mentioned and so on, these are all budget concerns, and the state's already not quite figured out how to deal with this year's budget. So what would your solution be budget-wise?
Well, as far as infrastructure, I think we can raise the gas tax. Gas is at an all-time low. And we could tie it to, if the gas price raises, then the tax can come down. But right now it's at an all-time low. And I think that people, when it's explained to them that extra dollar they're going to pay a gallon per gas is going to go into roads and bridges and things like that, and that's going to put your neighbor to work, and they're going to pay income tax, and then their income tax is going to help pay for your college education for your child. It'll feed into itself. I think
you didn't mean dollar per gallon,
No.
like dollar per tank, right?
Yeah, something like that. But they can raise the gas tank or gas tax to do the infrastructure investment. I'm a big proponent of the sin tax, and I'm somebody who likes a glass of wine in the evening. I do not mind paying another dollar for my bottle of wine if I have to, because I think that money can be put to really good use. And I'm going to say something that might make some folks cringe, okay? But I do believe we're going to have to raise some taxes on both people. We may have to take the food tax back, and corporations, because taxes can be invested and they will create jobs and they will create other taxes. You just compare the states that have done it. You compare Wisconsin to Minnesota. And in Wisconsin, they lowered taxes, adopted right to work, cut out the prevailing wage. They are bankrupt. You look at Minnesota. He went in, raised taxes, invested in the infrastructure, invested in education. Their economy is booming. They've added jobs. The wages have gone up, and they can now invest in their education and infrastructure.
I would just like to see what the leadership had to propose. I don't think they've proposed anything yet. I think the governor has proposed a budget which might have a slight increase in tobacco tax, although I'm not sure. I believe that's what happened. But look, you know, the government provides certain services and they have to be paid for. Now, how they're paid for, I don't know. But I would like to see a proposal from the legislature and the leadership. I believe that that the tax burden needs to be fairly distributed between business and between the citizens. I don't think it all needs to be on the citizens.
Well, if you're sent to the legislature, that would be part of your job to help come up with the solutions. So the types of solutions you would like to see, can you tell me some of those?
Again, I'm a working carpenter. I would like to get to the legislature so I could be a part of that.
But a fairly distributed tax.
Fairly distribute the taxes, yes.
Do you think the state needs to raise any taxes?
I think the state needs to find a revenue stream, whether it be taxes, whether it, you know, let's look at the lottery, maybe look at tobacco, maybe look at alcohol. I think it needs to come from any equitable source that it can come from to pay for the services that the government provides.
You mentioned infrastructure. One of you mentioned infrastructure earlier, and I found myself wondering about that bill that would have set up a new middle mile network for high-speed internet. Any kind of opinion on that bill? It didn't go.
I have no idea why it didn't go.
So you
If we expect people to come into this state, good quality businesses and good quality people, that's just a minimum. And kids use it every day for education. People use it for job hunting. It's not just used for Facebook, although I love Facebook and I do use it for that. I was never so happy in my whole life as when I live way out in the country. When I got high speed, it was a joyous day in my household. I think that's, you know, if people have a choice of coming to a state that's got high speed internet everywhere and or going to one that doesn't, I think that's, don't know why it didn't happen. I did like that.
I think absolutely we need to have high speed internet service. We need to have broadband service in West Virginia. It's a thing of the future. That's where I believe the good paying jobs of the future lie.
But we also need to have water to every household in the state of West Virginia. You know, septic, maybe not so much, but I mean, you can always put a septic system in or sewer, but water that's a basic human right. That we need good quality water to every household.
So what's the legislature's role in that?
I think just being supportive of the county commissions when they apply for those grants, and if they can't make up the money in grants, to try to find some help. You know, some communities in Putnam County just don't qualify for it because we have too much income, and some of them do. So I think that the legislature can help the counties.
There was also talk of, forgive me because I don't know what the legislation was, but a bill that was dig once bill or one dig bill or something that if you are opening up a ditch to provide sewer or water to a community, that there is automatically access in that ditch before it's covered back up, where high-speed internet could later be, where you don't have to dig twice, basically. And that didn't get any traction that I know. I would certainly support that.
Yeah, they buried the electric lines and everything at
Absolutely.
the same time, so
All at
that you
the
don't
same
have them
time.
going down every winter.
For any future expansion of broadband or.
That's a good idea.
Things?
Yeah, on the taxes, Mr. Brewer, you wrote in your survey here that we should update tax brackets for household incomes above $60,000 a year. What do you mean by that exactly? Just more tax brackets up there?
As I understand, tax tables were written in the late eighties or early eighties when, I guess $60,000 was considered a lot of money, and have never been updated. I personally, a family that reaches the income level of $60,000 paying the same percentage taxes as a multimillionaire seems a little bit out of whack to me. I think we should maybe have another tax bracket or two for the ultra wealthy.
I agree.
You said something interesting in your written. We asked about Common Core and whether West Virginia should keep it. And you essentially said you should let the counties decide, let counties choose.
I'm a true believer in letting local educators make their own decisions about things. Common Core, I represent a gal who works at the state Board of Education, and she explained it to me. Common Core is just a standard. It is a national standard of this is what we expect fifth graders to know at the end of fifth grade. This is what we expect ninth graders to know at the end of ninth grade. How each county reaches that standard is up to them. How they teach it is up to them. How they make sure that their fifth graders do it is up to them. And I think it should remain up to them. I don't think that the legislature needs to be involved, period. There might be some educators on the legislature, but I think each county knows best how to serve its students. And as long as they're meeting that overall standard, I think they're professionals. We treat them as professionals. We pay them as professionals, and we allow them to do their job. That's my position on
Common Core, I mean, I'm okay with some sort of standardized testing to see how our students rank, but don't let that take our eye off the ball. Let's get the budget passed. Let's get some funding for our teachers, get their benefit PEIA funded so we can attract good teachers, and let the teachers teach. Let them educate our students so they can get decent jobs in the future.
Mr. Brewer, a couple of times you've mentioned fixed PIA, FTIA. What's the best way to do that?
That's a good question. That's what it means, PIA. Well, we need to pass a budget that fixes PIA, number one. If I remember correctly, the last time the legislature left town without a budget was about 20 years ago. And they left town without a budget because there was too much money. And they wanted to make sure they didn't short anybody with the excess of money that was there. So let's get a budget put together that funds PEI.
All right, well, again, I'm going to mention the sin tax, and it doesn't just go to alcohol and tobacco. I think the sin tax also needs to cover sugary drinks. West Virginia is an extremely unhealthy state, and I'm sitting here not being the best role model in the world, although my numbers are pretty good. I'm actually pretty healthy. But we are an unhealthy state, and we spend a tremendous amount of our healthcare dollars on issues that could be eradicated, like diabetes and obesity, things like that. And so if we have this sin tax and people have to pay a little extra for the things that are bad for them, that is one avenue for fixing PEIA shortfall. And why I don't understand why we won't go there. I just don't understand why it can't be passed, because it would fix a couple things at one time.
So when you say sin tax, I was thinking alcohol and tobacco.
I'm
Sounds
also-
like you would sugary drinks, anything else?
I think sugary, at least we can, it's easier to monitor sugary drinks. You know, we could go down the path of, well, maybe cheese crackers are okay, but potato chips are not. Those would be harder, but sugary drinks, certainly. Soda pop, we all know is bad for us. There's not a single nutritional thing, good thing coming out of soda pop. It's bad for our teeth. It's one of the contributing factors to diabetes. It's just lethargy. It's not a good thing at all.
What, sort of procedural question, If you were elected to the legislature, what committees would you see serving on, and how come?
I want to be on judiciary.
Because
Not that, not, because I'm a lawyer, number one,
Okay.
but I think that's a powerful committee that here's a lot of things get their origin there. Things that are important to me. Civil rights issues, women's issues, things like that.
I would welcome a labor and industry committee, because that's my background. That's what I'm really about.
Which committee would you say?
Labor,
My second choice would be education.
There's a couple of the biggies.
In terms of state government role models, who are some legislators or past governors that you thought were the best?
Senator Jay Rockefeller has been a role model. Currently, I very much admire President Obama and what he has done for the country.
at the state level.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Senator Jeff Kessler. I was a very big fan of Bert Thompson, Speaker of the House. Things like that.
On that note, who do you guys think should be the next governor?
Oh, is that fair? That's not really fair. Is it?
I didn't bring it up.
You said the word Kessler.
Well, I very much admire Senator Kessler, but my support would probably be for Booth Goodwin because of women's issues. And I understand why Jeff takes certain positions on women's issues that he takes. It's a religious thing for him, but I'm a woman of the 70s. I gotta say that's an important one for me.
Well,
When you say women's issues, is that primarily abortion?
It's a choice issue. It's a choice issue.
Right.
And I will say, yeah, that's abortion. And it's not that I am for abortion. Let me be very clear. I think it's a horrible thing for any woman to ever have to decide to do. And I think the way you address that is that you have meaningful sex education in the school system, starting in the 8th grade, particularly for girls before they go to high school. And then you have access to free or low cost contraceptives. And if you do that, like Colorado did, you eradicate the need for abortion. The other, and I just believe women should have the power to make certain decisions over their life. And if we're going to talk about late-term abortion, that's really a non-issue. There were 8 performed in the state of West Virginia last year, all of which involved either a non-viable fetus or the life of the mother. And in those situations, it truly shouldn't involve government. So, yeah, that's my woman's issue.
as far as the next governor, I'm going to be political here. Whoever the Democrat candidate comes out of the primary, because I put a lot of the dysfunction of the legislature right at the feet of Senator Cole and Speaker Armstead.
All right. You are a fan of Jeff Kessler, though.
I like Jeff.
Okay.
And I will support whoever the Democratic candidate is.
I like Booth too.
All right.
I noticed neither one of you said you liked Jim Justice.
And Jim Justice employs some of my members.
I think we've covered it.
I've been just kind of interested in the charter schools issue, and especially you get out and talk to people. Are there people in your district who express support for charter schools, or?
I've not heard
No.
any support for charter schools.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
And if you look at the charter schools and you look at the history of charter schools, the performance is not good and the overall benefit of them is not very good. At the same time, they're detracting and taking dollars away from public education. And dollars are they're not in great excess right now. So, those dollars are precious.
You said something earlier, Rosalie, about the opioid crisis affecting every part of your practice, what you see, and that made me curious about, could you share some specifics?
Yeah, let's say 5 years ago, probably 10%, no, even less than that, probably 5% of my domestic practice, in custody, divorce, that sort of thing, would have involved drug addiction and more alcoholism than I did drug addiction. My criminal practice, probably 20% would have been drug addiction. It is not an exaggeration for me to say today, my criminal practice is 90 to 95% drug involved. My family practice now, probably 50% of my cases involve drugs. That's how extensive this problem is. It is pervasive. It's horrible. And it affects I would guess that it affects every family in my district, whether it's a child or a nephew or a niece or a grandchild, every family in my district. That's what I hear from people when I'm out in the community.
It surprises me to hear you say that 5 years ago, because we were right in the middle of the meth crisis.
You know, meth, you didn't have the ODs like you do with the heroin and the fentanyl and the pill prescriptions. And it was starting 5 years ago. Meth was destructive, but it wasn't deadly. And now meth is really not a big deal, not compared to what we're dealing with the heroin and the opioid addiction. Again, it's deadly. We've seen that. We've seen it firsthand on our front page papers. It's devastating.
I was just interested in the up close look.
Oh, I could tell you stories. I mean, babies that are born addicted. I do a lot of abuse and neglect work, almost 100%. We don't do dirty house cases anymore. We don't do spanking cases anymore. It's all drug addiction.
Might take a day.
I think I'm good.
Wrap it up. Very much appreciate y'all coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
This has probably been the biggest